Do you want to learn how to do nail art, but you can't draw and you can't use gels? Then I've got the mani for you. What's up, nail crew? It's Nicole, your fellow nail obsessed DIYer. I'm going to show you a whole bunch in this video. We are going to do layered stamping. I'm going to show you how to use peel base and then dip over top of it. And then at the very end, I'm going to show you how to use dip top coat to actually top your stamps so you don't need to use any gels. On my nails right now, I have builder gel and it's buffed super smooth. I like to keep either builder gel or rubber base down on my natural nails so that I can just do peel base over top of it and then pop my dip manis off. Depending on how long you want to wear your manis is how much peel base you should put on. So if I only want to wear my manis for like 2 or 3 days, I'll put on a lot of peel base, like a pretty thick layer. If I want to wear it for like a week or so, I'll put on less thick peel base. I'll put on a thin layer and I stay away from my edges. Once your peel base totally dries, then you want to go over it with a thin layer of dip base. That is going to make sure that your layers apply really nice and evenly. If you don't do that, the peel base will make your first layer sit really like wonky and it won't be very even. We're going to do a little color block, but when you're doing color block and peel base, you absolutely have to make sure that that first layer of dip base is totally dry that you put on. So after your peel base is dry, you put on that layer of dip base that we talked about, and you make sure that's totally dry before you go and you do your steps for the color blocking. I like to use this nail tape. I'll make sure I link it in the description. It's almost like mini masking tape, but it's a nail tape I got off Amazon. It's pretty cheap. I've been using these rolls for a while and like you can see they're not remotely used up. So it's like maybe buy it once every 10 years or something. I like that it's nice and thin so I can really place it where I want. And when you're placing that tape down on your nail, you don't want to press it down so hard that then it yanks up any dip base underneath. I press it down just like mostly at the top and the back and then very gently press it down through the middle. You want to make sure it's anchored in there in your cuticles so you don't get dip over the tape. And then you want to press it on the edge to make sure that your dip base doesn't sneak over at the end of your nail. I like to pour my dip powder over when I'm doing, when I'm doing any kind of shimmer or solid, and it's really important when you're doing color blocking. Do your solid or your shimmer first, and then very gently pour it over and then peel up the tape. So when you saw me applying the dip base and pouring it over, I tried really, really hard to keep the dip base just on the area where I wanted it. I tried not to go over top of the piece of tape. If you go over the top of the piece of tape too much, your line's not going to be as crisp when you gently pull off that tape. So once you pull off the tape, you can brush off your nail. And then I like to go and really carefully apply activator to the one side of my nail that has the dip on it. This way, when you do your other side, you don't get any color cross-contaminated over. So I'm going to do 2 shimmers, but still, I just want to make sure that the white stayed really white when I added the next color beside it. These 3 gorgeous shimmers that I'm using are from CN Designer Dips. The white is called White Diamonds, the purple is Grape Jelly, and then the green is called Mint Jelly. They are absolutely gorgeous. I'll make sure I link those in the description too. I always have everything linked in the description in case you can't find something that I'm using and you're wondering. I have it linked in there. If I forget to say the names, I am a bit forgetful, so if I do that sometimes, I'm sorry. The peel base is also from CN Designer Dips. So whatever dip liquids that you're using, you really want to focus on making sure your layers are nice and thin. So that starts with applying your dip base thinly. And when you hear people say, make sure your layers are thin, that's what they mean. If you apply a ton of dip base, your layers are going to be thick. If you apply a thin layer of dip base, your layers are going to stay thinner. So to get like the most wear out of your nails, to have less lifting, cracking, and chipping, you are better to do more thin layers than a lower number of thicker layers. That has worked for so many people. Typically with thick layers, you get more lifting, cracking, and chipping. For me, since I have 2 layers of either rubber base or builder gel down on my natural nails, I only need to do 2 layers of the color and then 1 layer of clear. If I'm using dip liquids, I do my last layer as clear every single time, regardless of what I'm using, if it's a solid, shimmer, flake, foil, glitter, whatever. I like to do clear as my last dip because it helps to encapsulate the color or the glitter, whatever you're using. That keeps it safe when you're buffing, filing, and shaping after you activate. So I do not know what I did on my thumbnail here. You're gonna see me go through and do 2 dips of this mint jelly, and then I had to end up doing a third. When I brushed off the excess on my thumb, I realized that on my first layer after the peel base, when I just do the dip base and let it dry, I must have accidentally went over the edge, like the tip of my nail with some of the dip base, and it made like this weird ridge. So I ended up having to do 3 layers, but luckily these liquids and the dips are nice and thin. So even though I did 3 layers plus a layer of clear dip powder, my nails did not look thick. The reason, like, some people ask me like, hey, why don't you recommend XYZ dips, or, you know, particularly stuff from the company that rhymes with Schmamazon. I typically do not recommend dips from Schmamazon because I haven't found any that are high enough quality to what I like. I found a couple really good small businesses that I prefer to use their high quality dips and liquids. So, you know, in all honesty, like, could I make more money by telling you guys to buy stuff off Amazon? Yep, I could. Will I? Nope, I won't. So for full transparency, if I ever recommend something off Amazon, it's because I actually like it. But as of now, I have yet to find an Amazon brand that I think is good as all these small businesses that I prefer to use. So anyways, once you finish all your clear, then you want to make sure that you brush off the excess and activate it. And I did the buffing, filing, and shaping off camera. I rarely put that on camera just because I feel like it's a little bit boring. If you are still struggling with your basic dip application and you need more help, make sure you check out the first pinned comment. It has a link to my Ultimate Dip Nails 101 guide, everything you need from prep to application to removal. It's over 45 pages that's going to go over all the good stuff in one spot that you can print out and look at over and over for while you're doing your nails. Now we're gonna jump back into the stamping. So when you're doing layered stamping, it's a little bit different than doing just a plain, simple swipe over the image and place it onto your nail. I would say, honestly, of all the stamping things I've done, layered stamping took me a lot longer to really get down because I didn't have the timing correct. I wouldn't be applying everything, and I'd be working too slow, or I'd work too fast. So with reverse stamping, what you do is you basically build up an image. It's a bunch of parts. You start with the base and then you keep adding layers, and that's why it's called layered stamping. I was trying to do a couple different designs. I wanted like a really Eastery, fun spring look. My initial design was to go with like this bunny, but for some reason, I just could not figure out the colors. So I was getting the bunny to stamp right. I just did not like how any of the colors looked together. And I didn't line up the bunny very well. That is the one thing that I struggle with layered stamping. Like, I see where it should go, but then when I go to press it down, it's like my hands and my brain do not want to communicate. And I put the layer down on a spot that's not quite correct. So I was getting really frustrated. I did a bunch of bunnies and I said, you know what? The bunnies are just not working for me. I am going to try to do the little eggs. So typically when you're doing layered stamping, you start with like the main part of the image. So for the eggs, you started with the back part of the egg, like the solid egg part. Then you put the little design over it. So you can pick one of the designs, and it went really well. I liked the colors. I'll make sure I list all of the stamps that I use, the colors. I'm using a combination of Clear Jelly Stamper and Maniology for this one. You have to work decently fast when you're doing layered stamping because you want the stamping polish to still be wet when you're placing it down. You don't want it to be soaking wet, but really with stamping, once you scrape and apply it to your plate, it's ready to go. So I had to make sure I worked pretty fast to get the stamps onto my nails, because if you don't, then your stamp's going to be dry and you're going to have part of an image stamped down and have to start over. So that's something that I still am working on, my timing with layered stamping. If you really struggle with moving quickly, then you're going to want to do just a one image stamp, or you're going to do reverse stamping because you basically have to let the whole thing dry. So reverse stamping to me is actually easier since you have to let the entire image dry. And Since I've already activated my nails, I've buffed and shaped them, I wipe them off with alcohol. If I get a design that I don't like and it didn't work, then all I do is take a bunch of alcohol on a paper towel and rub the design off, because the stamps aren't fully dry yet. So even though they might feel pretty dry, until you put the top coat on, like unless you wait, an hour or something, if you're taking them off within a few minutes, they dry pretty quickly. So even on my ring finger, I ended up going with another egg. I just did a different design just because the egg went so well, but I felt like it was missing something. The 2 eggs alone just were not enough for my likings, just felt too boring. So I decided to do like a cute little carrot, and the orange that I had first picked, it was too bold of an orange. It was like almost more of a Halloween fall orange. Then I found a more peach orange that felt way more springy to me. So I stamped that really quick. When you're doing stamping, you do not want to flood the plate with your polish. You are really going to struggle to pick up your image if you put too much stamping polish down. So that's something that takes some practice to get used to. You want enough polish that it covers the image, but not so much that it's flooding the plate. And then you want to scrape quickly and firmly downwards or sideways, and then you'll roll the jelly stamper in the opposite direction that you scraped. That really, really helps me to pick up my stamps a lot better. And rolling the stamper gently is huge. Do not roll the stamper hard, like press down into it, or you won't pick anything up. Now that our image is stamped, we want to do the top coating, but how the heck do you apply dip top coat over stamps? I found a way to do it, and it's really easy. You want to do a layer of the smudge-free top coat. I'm using Maniology. So first you put that over all of your stamps and make sure you cap your edges. It needs to be everywhere on your nail because it has to fully encapsulate that stamp so that no activator gets through it. And then I let it dry for probably like 5 to 10 minutes. Really 5 is the minimum I do. And my last mani I did, I pushed it a little bit and it was a little sticky. So I might have contaminated my activator, but TBD. Once your smudge-free top coat fully dries, then you can go in and do your dip top coating exactly how you normally would. Make sure whatever brand you're using, you follow their instructions. So I'm using CN's dip liquids. Their instructions go like this. You apply activator to 5 nails, let that dry for 60 seconds, and then go in with your first layer in 2 to 3 quick, thin strokes. So on my thumb, sometimes I have to do 4 strokes because my nails are so huge, especially when they're long. My thumbnails are massive. But I really try carefully to only do 2 to 3 strokes, and I make sure that I cap my edges on both layers of my top coat. I float the top coat regardless of the brand I'm using. And we definitely do not want to contaminate our top coat brush. After we worked so hard on our mani, we want our top coat to be nice and shiny. If you're ready to learn more about stamping, make sure you check out the next video and I will help you learn reverse stamping. Thanks so much for joining me today, Nail Crew.